But let me just ask you, because this is news now, that because it's been addressed by the Players Association, or at least by active players involved in the Players Association, on the pending move to 18 games as a schedule. This is not going to fly well with players.
No, it is not. And I've been talking with players over the last couple of weeks about it. And, they are, not all of them are as strong about it as Ryan Kelly was yesterday, who's a VP on the exec committee for the Players Union. He was pretty adamant that he does not like the idea of 18 games. That's an extra game of wear and tear in the regular season on your body, and just getting rid of preseason games doesn't really do anything for the veteran players because they're not going to be playing in those games anyway,
right.
Which I thought was a really fair point. Some other guys I've talked to have said they don't really care, tell them when to put the pads on and they'll be there. They'll, strap up for
right.
any game. It's an extra game check, those kind of things. But I really think this is going to be met with a lot of resistance. But at the same time, this league is about money. And if an extra game gives these guys extra money, the league also is going to get extra ad revenue, extra money in these TV partnerships, all of those things. Money's the name of the game, and an extra game comes with a lot of that. So I think it's going to get done. It's just a matter of when. Yeah,
my response to that, though, is that one game, and really it's two games, we can't even call it a one-game increase because it's really a two-game increase. We're only going back 3 years or so when it was a 16-game schedule. 2 games, which is, I can't do the math, 2 out of 16, like a 13% increase on the on your job. It's going to ultimately shorten careers, right? Those extra 2 games that are played are ultimately going to shorten careers. And is it worth playing 2 more games for whatever those 2 games are going to earn the players if it shortens your career by a year?
Right. I agree. I don't think it's worth it. I also think that going to 18 games, does that water the product down? I know that these guys would like to have an extra bye week in there, which I think is more than fair. If you're making this an 18-game schedule, you absolutely should have 2 bye weeks. But even so, if teams already have divisions wrapped up, how many games do they end up resting the starters at the end of the year? Right now it's usually just 1 week, sometimes at the very end. If you have 18 games and you have a team that's definitely going to make the playoffs and, they're not going to get the number 1 seed, but they're a lock for at least a home game. at that point, do you rest guys the last 2 games? And I think that players that I've talked with, Landon Roberts being one of them, who early in his career was playing for Super Bowls every year with the Patriots, that's a long season, and you add in another regular season game, and it feels like it never ends.
Right.
And so I think that these guys, the older ones I've talked with, when they say, well, when is this going to happen? I said, well, maybe not for a year or 2. And they say, oh, thank God, I think I'll probably be out of the league by then. Right. So I think that there's a lot that, yes, it's the fans, I'm sure, want it because it could mean a President's Day weekend Super Bowl.
Sure.
Maybe you get Monday off, but players don't care. Their schedule is they'll play whenever they have to with the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter if Monday's off or not. That doesn't really matter to them. But right. at the end of the day, it's all about money, and this is the way that the league's going to get even more of that.
All those players have Monday off, regardless of whether it's played on President's Day weekend or the weekend before. They've all got Their job was Sunday. They're not going to Super Bowl parties. They're not recovering from. Well, who knows? They're recovering from something. But
not in the same way that we are all nursing,
right.
a headache, maybe the shakes, all things that come from watching a Super Bowl with friends.
Exactly. Brooke Pryor, ESPN, covers the Steelers at BE Pryor on Twitter. So this is now going around because of recent signings. Jalen Waddle joining Tyreek Hill in the $30 million club for the Dolphins. Justin Jefferson becoming the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Brandon Ayuk is holding out of 49ers training camp because he wants to get paid. All these receivers are getting all this money. Knowing how many wide receivers are coming out, more wide receivers who could play at a high level by a lot than quarterbacks. Why are teams paying all of this money to wide receivers when you can just turn around the next year and get another one?
It's a good question, but I think it also, wide receivers right now, the ones that are elite, that are at the top of their game, are as much a difference-making player as a quarterback. They can just change the game so fast. And I think that right now, to your point that there are more wide receivers coming out in the draft every year. I mean, the guys that are in there right now are still a byproduct of the things that are making the receivers, the younger ones, so good. And that's, the increased 7-on-7, the position specialization early, all of these things that, it feels like you want to pay the guys like a Justin Jefferson, pay him a lot now because he's going to be the future of your team. But I think that they're going to get a lot of money, but I think that we have to pay attention to the terms and the length of these deals, because none of these receivers are going to get like a Patrick Mahomes length contract. These, long-term extensions are shorter than you might see for a quarterback or, an O-lineman or a position that has some longevity. And so I really feel like that's what we're going to see the general trend being with these receivers, is that you pay them a lot for a little bit of time, which gives you time to then draft a rookie receiver, have him develop for a year or two, and then he really explodes, and then he gets money for a little bit. And that's the cycle that goes. You want to hit them right at that peak of their career, which you do with every player. But I think the wide receiver peak is just going to happen so much faster right now.
I think you can do that with one wide receiver. I'm not sure how the Dolphins do that with two wide receivers and also pay Tua Tagovailoa, who they said yesterday they were going to pay. So Tua's contract's going to be in the $50 to $55 million range. How do you devote, 40% of your salary cap to three players that produce this at the same part of the offense, just the passing? How do you do that?
Well, whoever is doing their cap, I would like to manage my budget, because they've figured out how to stretch a dollar more than I can. I do think that the Dolphins' way of team building is interesting, because I think the argument for paying a wide receiver a lot of money is you have a rookie quarterback, or you have other skill position players on rookie deals that are inexpensive, and that allows you to, have shiny, expensive toys around them. That's, I think, the most successful way to build a team right now. And the Dolphins are saying, well, we've got a way to pay everybody, but at some point you can't cover all your bases. And I think their defense is not as good as other teams in that division. I also think that the commitments that they're making to the players they're making them to are kind of risky, because Tua, we've seen last year, he, did not have the significant concussion issues that he had a year ago, but I still worry about his longevity as a player because of that concussion history. It only takes one. And then Tyreek Hill is an incredibly good receiver, but the skill set that he has is not one that carries on for a long time. It's not one that the speed that he has isn't one that ages well. And I think the same thing can be said for Jalen Waddle. And so if I'm them, I'm really careful, and I would be wanting to pay these guys what I think they're going to do, not what they have done. And I think that the Dolphins are a little bit paying these guys for what they have done and not the other way around. And that's when you get dangerous, and you can end up really having hamstrung your cap in years to come. And then you're just kind of stuck and have to hope that you draft well.
When they signed Jalen Waddle, I said that just means that they're not going to pay Tua, because it just doesn't make any sense. If you look at the top 10 teams in the NFL right now that devote the top 10 monies devoted to wide receivers, there's only one of those teams that has paid a quarterback among the top salaries in the league, and that's Cincinnati. And they've got decisions to make, and it probably doesn't bode well for T. Higgins in Cincinnati. Brooke Pryor is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. And before I let you go, all right, OTAs, all of the stuff that has happened with the Steelers. Do we have any clarity on quarterback? Is Russell still with platitudes and all of that? Is he having a good time? Justin Fields laughed when he heard that people were having rumors that he would be returning kicks, which will never happen. What's going on at the quarterback position there?
Russell Wilson is still in pole position. Mike Tomlin's favorite turn of phrase to describe the quarterback situation. But as I have heard and as I have thought about multiple times since he said that, the person that it wins pole position doesn't necessarily win the race. But at this point, Russell Wilson is still in pole position. Maybe we're early and this is like a 500-lap race. We might be in like the first 10 laps. I mean, there is a long way to go in this. And so, I mean, this is still Russell Wilson's quarterback room, Russell Wilson's offense. And Justin Fields is learning. He's saying all the right things, as is Russell Wilson, as you would expect.
Yes.
The exciting thing about Steelers OTAs is that they are now playing music at practice. That has been a long time. The Steelers have not done that. I don't know who is DJing it, but today they were playing Outkast, and so the vibes were great.
Very nice.
I mean, look, it's OTAs, it's football in shorts, and it's a long way until we get to Latrobe, and even longer until we get to week 1. But I think the early returns, the guys really like Arthur Smith's offense, especially the O-lineman and the running backs, because this is going to be a ground it and pound it type of offense, and so they're excited, as are the tight ends. But I've seen fool's gold this time of year before. You don't have to look much farther than last offseason with Kenny Pickett, when it seemed like he was going to make a big jump and jumped and then fell flat on his face. So it's a long way to go, but there are early positive signs here.
By the way, the fact that you said it, ground it and pound it, means that Panthers fans don't have to say, "Hey, that's ours." They just eliminate all the it's. It's just ground and pound here, which they didn't do last year, but I think they will do this year, because I think Dave Canales knows that that's the best way for them to make it easier on Bryce Young. Brooke Pryor joining us here. I appreciate your time. Any inflatable ducks or anything to report?
No inflatable ducks at the moment, although I have been told that someone found a Taylor Swift rubber duck that is in the mail to me.
Beautiful.
So I can't wait to get that. And when it arrives, I will certainly tweet that out and add her to my collection.
Very nice. Brooke Pryor.